All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo Golic, day 2 at the Super Bowl. We're already leaking fuel. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here. We got a great show for you guys. We are presented by 1-800-Flowers.com, DraftKings official flowers for Valentine's coming up very soon. Got a fun one for you today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us that 5-star rating. And remember, this week we are coming at you live from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Normally, you can hear us 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Our show from today will be replayed tomorrow in that 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern slot where you normally get us today. Fun one, as we mentioned, Aaron Schatz from FTN going to join us here at the end of the hour. Stugotz from the Dan Le Batard Show going to help us kick off hour number 2, as well as a little bit of local Vegas flavor. Jakobi Meyers and Aidan O'Connell, both Las Vegas Raiders, on behalf of the folks at Bounty. So fun one there, Dad. But you and I both got to take in Super Bowl opening night last night, albeit in very different ways.
Yeah, we did. This is the one part, and boy, a lot of people showed up, open to the public out in the stands that they were
at Allegiant.
I was at the stadium. I always look forward to this. I'm not sure what the mob gets when you have all the reporters around one player. It's more if you can get a one-on-one like you did with some of the players, and I got to talk to them before they went out there for Westwood One and the coverage Sunday during the game. So yeah, to see some of these guys up close and personal, we're going to talk about. Man, there's some big guys. I mean,
some big old boys.
Smokes.
There's some hosses.
Yeah. And guys I'm afraid of.
Very much afraid of here. It was a great scene. It was at the stadium. It was fully packed. We heard a very pro 49ers crowd booing Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs at a couple of junctures in here. And as Dad mentioned, we got a chance to catch up and check in with some of the players that were making their way around the stadium here. Here's a quick look at a little bit of Super Bowl opening night through our lens. All right, we're out here at Allegiant Stadium, Super Bowl opening night. 49ers are here, Chiefs are here, Taylor Swift's boyfriend's here. We're going to try and catch up with all of them and see what's going on before the big game. I guess just first reactions to being here opening night, what's it been like?
It's been a blessing, man.
What's it been like watching everything that's gone on with Kristen since the Taylor Swift moment and everything that's happened since?
It's been so awesome, man. It's been so awesome. I'm so proud of her.
Has she made you a piece before?
She may have one coming up this Sunday. So,
all right, we're going to keep an eye out for that one. All right, it's just us talking here. We're going to get you under center at all during this one. If you want to give one of those cocktail napkin plays to Andy for this game.
I know, right? We still got another week. Maybe I got to go get in his ear a little bit.
Exactly. It's about that time. You mentioned you had Smuckers in the locker room here. Are we talking Uncrustables and actual homemade PB&J? What are we working with?
Yeah, Uncrustables, grape jelly.
Grape jelly. All right, a man of great taste. Understandable. Not surprised there. Travis and Taylor, obviously the store on the other side. But Kyle Juszczyk, Christian, we saw him in the replies, hyping up his wife everywhere. What's the nicest thing you've done for your wife or that she's done for you?
I bought her a car for Christmas.
It's pretty nice.
Not bad.
That's pretty nice.
Can't complain about it, you know?
There you go. All right, hey, listen, that's husband of the year stuff right there.
All right, so as many of you are probably aware of by now, this game is a sequel to the game played 4 years ago between the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs that the Chiefs won. So we wanted to go around and ask a bunch of the guys getting ready to play in this game what their favorite sequel of all time is.
Have you seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Yes, I have.
I mean, that pops right into my mind. Two Towers and Return of the King. I mean,
Just came out, Equalizer. Denzel Washington, one of my favorites.
Which is the best Lord of the Rings movie among the three?
the Fellowship and the Return of the King, I go back and forth with. I love the first one, but that third one, I think, just capping it all off, and the ending was so awesome. I think, probably the third. How about you?
A man of great taste. I'm a Two Towers man myself. The battle at Helm's Deep, prior to Battle of the Bastard, the largest on-screen fight in history.
Unbelievable, yeah. So when Gandalf appears on that ridge, yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
That's when you really know.
Are you kidding me?
The boys.
Are you kidding me?
The boys are okay.
You and Joe Tooney talking and chopping it up about Lord of the Rings.
Can I tell you the other one that wasn't shown there? Kyle Juszczyk, who we talked to there about his wife Kristen and her line of clothes, the partnership with the NFL. We asked him that same question. Did not even wait a second. Pitch Perfect 2.
Oh, no, I did like that.
Absolute
like
hero ball out of him. We got that one, Blake Bell, who we talked to there, the tight end, former Oklahoma Sooner. Now they're also threw out there, after my own heart, him and his wife just got done for the first time in his life watching the entire Harry Potter franchise.
Really?
On movies. So,
wow.
Really eclectic taste. I was very impressed by that group.
I like Drew Tranquil talking about the Equalizer, because I just watched Equalizer 3.
Figured as much.
Was okay. Was okay. You know, not the finest, but it's Denzel Washington starting his stopwatch before he kicks everybody's ass. So how do you not watch it?
Exactly. A pretty tried and true formula in the way that we've seen the John Wick franchise be successful.
You know what? You and Joe look like you guys could have talked for days about a series that I would rather stick pencils in my eyes than sit through because they're so long.
Which I don't want to derail us too much here, but your inability to see past your own misconceptions about the Lord of the Rings franchise. You're a guy that loves Game of Thrones. Yeah. You're no stranger to fantasy that's also got a bunch of political undertones to it. It makes no sense why you reject this one but accept the other.
I know, I get it, but that's the other thing you do, and I don't know if you asked Joe Tooney if he did as well. Do you deep dive? Like I don't deep dive after anything. I'm an inch deep and a mile wide. I watch the movie or I watch the show and I go about my business. I don't care the whys of everything happening.
It's just if we talk about the movie when it's done, for you, that is a bridge too far. As soon as you are done with the movie, unless you are getting ready to say how awesome it was to somebody, that's as much as you want to talk about it. Apparently, I hope you might have had more substantive conversations, because while we were out there clanging and banging in the crowds out there trying to make it happen, you're on the call for Westwood One with this game. You guys got access to these guys behind the scenes here. So what was that like in a little more intimate setting?
So for the Chiefs who got there first, I got to talk to, in a one-on-one setting, Nick Bolton, the linebacker for the Chiefs. 3rd year in the league. 2nd Super Bowl.
Decent.
I mean, seriously. And Chris Jones, the incredible D lineman, 8th year, 4th Super Bowl.
What was that like for you seeing Chris Jones? Because I always comment when I see offensive linemen, guys that are so much bigger and better than I ever was at my position, and the way it makes me feel. You played D-tackle in the NFL for 9 years. Chris Jones obviously has been 8 years and 4 Super Bowls. What was that experience like?
It's like the only thing that could be said about us is the DL after our name.
Sure.
That's the only commonality there is. Because the fun thing about doing those one-on-ones is before you do them, you end up talking to them kind of off mic and just kind of shooting the breeze. And the one thing I was telling Chris that I was so happy to see, kind of like we talked about the D lineman from Baltimore, Madubuike.
Justin Madubuike,
and what he did, where he was in the last year, his rookie deal. Baltimore offered him an extension in the training camp, and he bet on himself, and he's going to win for over $20 million. And I said to Chris, dude, great move. 1-year deal, full of incentives, and he hit a bunch of those, as we were talking about the end of the season, hit him, and now he's a free agent. And we talked about the big gap of like an Aaron Donald at $31 million, and then I think the next was maybe Christian Wilkins or whoever the next D tackle.
Christian Wilkins will be up. He's up for a contract extension after this season.
The next was at like $24 million.
Jeffrey Simmons, a bunch of those guys that are in that range.
There was that big gap, and Chris Jones is going to close that. Chris Chris Jones going to be in that $30 million area. I mean, the versatility of him playing inside and playing outside, at least I think he'll be up near that area of Aaron Jones after making about $19 million this year. But we chatted about that, and then certainly about the Super Bowl. And the thing that I like talking about, especially with a guy like him who is his trajectory is Hall of Fame.
Sure.
And on the other side, I talked to Trent Williams and Fred Warner.
Yeah.
Fred Williams is already in the Hall of Fame.
Trent is a walk-in Hall of Famer, no doubt about it.
Exactly right. Was how the greats, because I got to play with one of the greatest of all time in Reggie White and see him prepare. He's a guy that literally could have done nothing and walk on the field and beat everybody, but that's not what the greatest do. They still put the work in behind the scenes. And to hear Chris Jones and hear Trent Williams talk about what they do in their preparation, you know, to get on the field and be as great as they are is incredible. One of the things I talked to Chris Jones about, I mentioned this the other day, in the playoffs alone, he was double-teamed 49 times.
Sure.
In 2022 against San Francisco, he was double-teamed 22 times. And I said, how do you beat that? How do you practice beating double teams?
Sure.
You know, you don't really work on. And he said a lot of it is mental. He said a lot of it is the mental work on prep of watching a team and how they block double teams.
Sure.
Am I going against a guard to tackle? Am I going against a tackle and a tight end? Or am I waiting for a back to possibly chip me? Just to hear him break that down. And he said, I'm always looking for the one-on-one. And he said, even in this game, if my one-on-one is against Trent Williams, so be it.
Sure.
At least I know I'm in one-on-one, and may the best man win.
Yeah.
You know, it was really interesting talking to him about that. And then, you know, I'll start with those two. Talking to Trent. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Trent Williams was one we got to talk to on the outside, too. So I'm curious what you heard from him, because we talked about him a lot about what you just described. What you see in other all-time greats. What do you appreciate as someone who's done and accomplished as much as he has when you're watching another guy? And I thought it was a really interesting answer and really applies to both teams in this game. When you get to be teams this great, when you've got the playmakers all over the field that we're talking about in this game between Deebo Samuel and Kittle and CMC on one side, and Chris Jones and Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and certainly Trent Williams, he said, I like to watch where guys are willing to take chances. Because he said there's a bunch of stuff that you're not coached to do, but you as the player know through thousands of reps, through all those moments, the ESP relationship that we talk about with Travis Kelce and Mahomes, where you're willing to go rogue because you trust yourself enough and your preparation enough to go out there and take those chances. And it's the kind of analysis that only a guy who also is fit to wear a gold jacket, largely because he takes those chances and does things most others can't or won't, was fascinating.
One of the first things he mentioned when I talked about this game is he brought up Chris Jones.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, he said the one thing about it is when you got a guy like that, I don't even need to hear the call. I know exactly where the line's sliding.
Yes.
You know, he said, you know exactly what's going to happen, and they're sliding to Chris Jones. But just hearing him talk, Mike, of the joy. 14th year in the league. He's got every accolade that you can get.
Yep.
Plus, he plays with a physicality that I just wanted to immediately buy him a drink to be on my side and be a friend of mine.
You want to try and make sure you're bribing him so he doesn't whoop your ass.
It's exactly right.
Yeah, that's fair.
But to hear him now talk about this is his first Super Bowl. And he said, during my career, I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to go out there and do what I can do on the field, but I'm never going to get to a Super Bowl. And he goes, and here I am. And this is, you know, he joined Kyle Shanahan again. They were together in Washington when Kyle was the OC there. But he goes, yeah, I kind of, you know, reserved myself to the probable fact that I wasn't going to make a Super Bowl. So he said, I'm really enjoying this, you know, and he goes, I obviously have people on the team to talk to who had just been there a few years ago about the process. He goes, because I've never been through this process. He goes, I only know how to prepare for myself, but now this is different. He goes, the 2 weeks isn't different because we get bye weeks, but he said just how the schedule changes for you is something that we as players, because as I've always said, when you're a player, you're an itinerary person. Everything's and that gets thrown out the window. He said it's just getting used to that. And he said the biggest thing is that everybody always says is just get to the game. Yeah. Just get to the game.
And for Trent, he's a guy that's overcome health scares in his career. He had the bout with cancer and all of the challenges where he thought he might not even play again, to get to this point where, like you said, consistency. It's the thing every player, every coach is trying to hunt during this time period. And we've seen and heard so many of the lengths. We've experienced it as players that coaching staffs will go to try and make this as normal as possible. For both of these teams and staffs, they're fortunate to have a lot of guys that have coaches that have all been through this process that can give them the best chance at how they structure it. But it's interesting to see how everyone responds when all of a sudden that goes out the window. There was a lot of conversation in the last couple of days about the grass there.
Yes.
About the grass at the practice facility. So out here in practice, the Kansas City Chiefs are using the Las Vegas Raiders practice facility, and the 49ers are using UNLV's practice facility that they said was a little bit softer than they anticipated. The NFL has a rating scale for the hardness and firmness. Usually it's up in the 70s for a field. This one down in the 50s. So, Dad, was that something that got talked about by 49ers players or anyone there last night that you heard and their response to
No,
that?
because you wait till because I ran into this when I was on the field last year doing the game for Westwood One and watching the teams warm up in Phoenix, because there's two stadiums that roll in natural grass.
Yep.
Arizona and Las Vegas. And let me tell you, as I was standing there watching DBs slip and kick up chunks of grass last year before that Super Bowl, I was like, wow, this grass, and it was awful. So now the thought you're not going to know because they're not practicing on the turf that's going to be used in the Super Bowl. That's going to get rolled in on game day. So they were all about, we have to wait. We have to wait until we get on the field to see how it's going to be and see what cleats we're going to need. So that's going to be a need to know, just like it was last year. And, man, you had guys changing cleats last year because of the turf. So I'll be out down there again this year, obviously, when they're warming up and just kind of watch and see if chunks are going to be taken out.
But as far as the preparation for this week, because we heard the reports that the 49ers weren't happy about this, how big of a factor is that in the lead-up when you're trying to have these creatures of habit get ready in a new environment like this?
At this point, nobody's gotten hurt, so they're happy about that. And I'm sure if there's any kind of issue at all, again, nothing is really going full speed this week anyway.
Sure.
So I think that's a big thing. You're not torquing at full speed on the turf. So I don't think that's a big issue right now. Let me get quickly to the linebackers I talked to. Nick Bolton from the Chiefs, who has been a tackling machine for them, and Fred Warner. Here's the interesting thing about these two guys. When you talk about the passing games for both teams, you talk about tight ends in the middle of the field. Nick Bolton is the third-ranked linebacker as far as passer rating against him, the third lowest, third best at it.
Third best cover linebacker in terms of passer rating.
You know who number one is? It's Fred Warner. So these two guys, when they're in coverage, I'm going to be real interested to see how they cover, whether it's man or zone, in the middle of the field. And then let me just end on this, because I can appreciate this very much, good-looking people. They're all fine-looking young men, okay?
Sure.
Fred Warner.
Yeah.
Fred Warner
Fred.
not only is a great player, all-pro linebacker, best middle backer in the league, okay? He is unbelievable in media in talking and explaining things. He could slide into this job right now and be great in how he breaks things down and just has a conversation back and forth. And he is so good looking.
Wow.
I am telling you.
Fred Warner, underrated, handsome.
I'm telling you. So the comparison I'm going to make is Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the cast, Shamar Moore.
Oh, Shamar Moore, yeah.
Shamar Moore. Put Fred Warner's hair on Shamar Moore, who is bald.
Yes.
Put Fred Warner's hair, and there he is.
Wow. That's one of the nicest things you could say about any person. Shamar Moore is like a top 3 handsome person alive.
I'm not saying the other 3 I talked to weren't.
It sounds like you're saying they're a little bit uglier than him.
No. They're Fred Warner, listen, if he stopped playing football and wanted to be a model, could do it.
Hubba.
Could do it.
All right, there you go. Well, for everyone doing this job, Fred, keep tackling people.
Yeah.
We don't need you getting up in the space here trying to take anybody's job.
The first thing my producer for Westwood One said when we finished the interview is he looked at Fred and he said, as soon as you're done playing, you're going to take his job, and pointed at me. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm excited. I'm here for the Super Bowl. I get to do this and cover all this. You're trying to ball bat my knees out from under me.
Got me getting ousted, but luckily Fred has got a lot more years in the league. So
I was going to say,
okay.
I feel like while this is an exciting opportunity that's been presented to him, I think the financials associated with it are only slightly different.
Yeah.
So he might want to keep tackling people for a little while longer. So it was that kind of exciting to see these guys in the ramp up. And Dad, everyone we talked about here, I think the number one takeaway I had from Super Bowl opening night, considering we've talked about this being a rematch. We've talked about this being two teams that have been perennial Super Bowl contenders for the iterations of these rosters right now. Everyone seemed very comfortable.
Yes.
Like all of these guys in a situation where it's lights, it's fans, it's these crowds, it's all the media asking you any number and variety of questions here. Every guy, when we looked at, especially the veterans, the guys that are the core of this roster, they all seemed so at ease with this moment because so many of them had experienced it before.
Right.
Some guys had experienced it as a part of the other team the last time around when they played.
I think there's, 4 or 5 players that were that have been on both teams. But you're right. So guys that have experienced were comfortable. And then for those that haven't, they were able to talk to those players about what to expect. And we all know the last week, get the ticket situation all squared away, all that, and have the game plan is all in. And this week it's just about tweaking and staying healthy. And basically, we haven't seen it much lately, but staying out of trouble.
Exactly. No, being able to avoid that in this city, considering what's on the line, very important. Coming up next, want to get to a couple of comments from the commissioner last night and the most important interaction I had at Super Bowl opening night next. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic live here from Radio Row, Las Vegas, Nevada, ahead of Super Bowl 58. We are presented by DiGiorno. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. And Dad, we talked a lot about opening night last night at the NFL, the media all gathered around all these players. You're seeing a bunch of guys in there. You got to be up close and personal with a lot of these dudes. We were outside, a lot of us taking video, trying to chat with some of these guys. And I didn't want to bring this up off the top and necessarily make it sound like I was bragging or anything. I didn't want to make this out to be too much, but
this has to do with Taylor Swift, doesn't it?
Taylor's boyfriend, actually, who apparently is a dear friend of mine here. We were all watching last night. I think we have footage of the dap scene around the world right now. So, I mean, look at the longing in Travis's eyes, looking at his good friend, Mike Golic Jr., the bear hug right there. That's 6 degrees of Taylor Swift for me right there that I'm very comfortable with. I didn't get – the only thing I regret is with everything in me, I was trying to resist the urge to ask him, have you heard any of the tracks off the new album that she just announced? We did hear, by the way, the answer is yes, he has heard some of the tracks, and they are awesome. So the Tortured Poets Department coming out April 19th. Travis got a little bit of right there, but you saw that. I mean, you saw the love and friendship in that moment. It's incredible.
I'm so happy you didn't ask him that. So happy. And real quick before I have to burst your bubble, Travis Kelce is one of the starters or starters on both teams that played in Super Bowl 54 were starters. And Mahomes, Kelce, Austin Reeder as well, McCole Hardman, and Chris Jones for the 49ers, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, who is a monster, by the way. When I was talking to Trent Williams, Eric Armstead was there. We were all talking together. Wow. Fred Warner, and then Dre Greenlaw as well. Now, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I just feel I should let you know. Before they went out to the public,
sure.
That's when we were able to interview them. And I didn't do the interview with Travis Kelce. But as he walked by to do his interview, we locked eyes, and he said, hey, go with Northeast Ohio, both from Cleveland.
Sure, yeah.
We did the thing. We did the hug and quick chat, very quick chat. I didn't bring up Taylor Swift at all. And I said, listen, when you go out there, if my son comes up, I said, can you act like you know him? I mean, just kind of dap him up and
it's sad how jealous you are of what we have. Honestly, you can't even for a moment conceive of it. It's honestly that's ugly of you. I expected better from you.
Listen.
Sad.
You're old enough to hear the truth of things at times, and how you digest it is up to you. That's all I'm going to say.
You know what? Digesting in a segment presented by DiGiorno seems like the absolute right thing that we should do. Let's digest some of what we heard from the commissioner last night. Roger Goodell had his annual State of the Union, a little bit smaller, more intimate setting this year, a little more comfortable, relaxed version of the commissioner here. And one thing that came up is something that you and I have disagreed on vehemently for a while now, and it is Roger Goodell in the pursuit of global football. They announced that the Philadelphia Eagles would kick off next season Friday night in Brazil to start the year. And it spoke to the larger plan that Roger Goodell has for the sport. Here he was talking about the globalization of football.
We are convinced we can be a global sport in the near future. Our ownership has committed to allow more games to be played on an annual basis, on a global basis. We are excited about the fans' reaction, our media partners. I think this is a great opportunity for the league, and we are committed to making it a global sport.
We don't differ on that it's going to become a global sport, because I agree with that. You send teams overseas somewhere, it's going to be unbelievably popular. We are in total agreement on that.
And we have seen that already this year in Germany, where they've expanded to. Obviously, it's been incredibly popular here in Mexico, the games that have taken place in Mexico City. So much so, Joe Tooney, I saw, all of the Spanish-speaking news stations coming up, speaks fluent Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
NC State's very own should be very proud. I think he minored in Spanish at NC State. We walked by, we said, oh my God, he is fully dialed in Spanish the other way, which is great because the NFL does have a large contingent of fans down there.
I called the last game in Mexico City, packed. I mean, just how people love it out there. As you mentioned, Germany. It's going to be great. They will be able to be global in that way.
They made the announcement that specific teams can now market specifically in certain franchises around the world in these different marketplaces.
And then that is kind of how they're going to decide what team gets to market certain areas. When they have a game in that area, that's the team they're going to send. Where you and I think, disagree, they will never have a team overseas, let alone a division overseas, because it's always talked about the closest would be, well, I mean Mexico City, but London. And it's talked about with London. Jacksonville's been there all the time. Everybody thinks with Jackson, that's not going to happen. There is not going, the dealing you're going to have with the union about that.
Oh, yeah.
It is not going to happen. Games will happen overseas all the time, and that will increase. But the
AFC Western Europe. The NFC South America.
I will say there is no way on God's green earth that there will be an NFL team ever outside of across the seas.
I need you guys to clip that for me.
Yes,
Throw that in the vault right next to where Dad said there's no way on God's green earth that Patrick Mahomes is going to lead the Kansas City Chiefs farther than Alex Smith coming in as a rookie.
Did I say a God's green earth on that
God's green. That was the origin of the God's green earth story right there. That was the birthplace of that moment. So I want this cut and clipped because, Dad, you know this as well as I do about the NFL.
You think it's going to happen?
Dad, what is the one consistent truth about this league and the way that the ownership thinks about it? Some is great, more is better.
Mike.
This has always been a some is great, more is better league. There has never been enough for these people that sit in power. And at the end of the day, I appreciate the work the union does, but what have we seen the march over time slowly? When the owners want something done bad enough, they get what they want.
Baseball, basketball, and hockey has from a national, international respect there, way more players internationally, and they travel and play in places as well. They don't have teams that are going to be, and they have
because they have leagues that are strong enough to support themselves in those other places. The Japanese baseball league is one of the best in the world. We all watched the KBO during the pandemic.
Right.
There are all these places where those sports are supported and have leagues in those areas. The NFL does not have competitive leagues that operate outside of this country. The
only time the NFL did it was NFL Europe. When it was their minor league, and they decided, listen, the expense of this, is not worth. That's why everybody's hoping, or I certainly am, that the USFL and XFL merging will be that minor league. But no, not going to happen. Not ever going to happen.
Well, we're going to continue to disagree there. The one thing that we can both say, though, and the other thing, we won't play the sound here, but Roger Goodell also talked about and was asked a bit, didn't really address as directly the streaming games that we're seeing become more a consistent part of this. You're going to be able to stream the Super Bowl on Paramount Plus. It's obviously still going to air on CBS. And he said 90% of our revenue still comes from television advertising. It's not going to be a game that's streamed in his lifetime. Those are Roger Goodell's words. That in his lifetime, the Super Bowl is not going to be a game that's on streaming. I've heard John Skipper on with Pablo Torre talk about he thought it would be pay-per-view at some point because people would still do it. But we're going to be getting more streaming games.
Yes, we
are.
are.
Roger Goodell talked about, hey, we're meeting our fans where they are. You're going where organizations are willing to give you money for. They might think it's going there, but I think the streaming calculations are still more of an inexact science. But these companies all see value in that. They've got money to spend to the NFL because they're all trying to get the NFL's audience to migrate over there, and so it's going to keep happening.
Amazon gave the B letter to the NFL.
For one night.
I mean, for one night. So, of course, it's going to go that way. I mean, there's no doubt it's going to go that way, and people are going to complain about it, yet the NFL is going to continue to make more money, and they're not going, again, they are not going to lose fans. They're just not. I haven't seen anything yet.
Well, that's the problem is they know they've got us. They know we're addicted to this game, so they don't actually have to care about what's good for you or what you want. Because in that case, I don't think this is a situation that necessarily serves fans in the way that they're trying to claim. This lines pockets.
Agreed, but people are going to do it, and they can make money, so they're like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. Let's make some more money. The owners, as I said, when you're in an owners meeting, all you hear is want, want, want until you mention the word money, and then they pay attention.
You know what else is going to make them a lot of money?
What's that?
The NFC Western Europe.
No.
Can't wait for it there.
Stop it.
It all leads back to that.
Wrong.
We'll have the clip ready to go for whenever you're willing to admit the error of your ways. Coming up next, let's get to how to handle the heart-pounding moments that come with your team being in the big game. It's a stress test for fans, players, coaches, and everybody alike, and we're going to help give you some answers for that next. back to GoJo and Golic here. Plenty of beautiful shots around Las Vegas. The sun came out a little bit today for a while. That was cool.
Wow.
Fun to see here after the only 4 inches of rain that Las Vegas gets a year coming on Sunday and Monday of Super Bowl week, as one would. We are brought to you by Bayer Aspirin, the official sponsor of Fans' Hearts. And, Dad, that's what we want to talk about here for a second. The big game comes with a lot of stress. Players, coaches, everybody involved, but also the fans. There's a lot that goes into what's in your chest during the big game when you're watching your team try and go out there and make it happen. And we want to help people be ready for these situations when they arise. And so to do that, we talk to an actual medical doctor about what can happen and how the big game affects the ticker in your chest. Take a listen.
All right, rare is the opportunity where we get to make you all smarter listening, but we have that opportunity here right now. February is American Heart Month, and so for more to help us understand that, Dr. Steinbaum is joining us here on behalf of Bayer, who is an official sponsor of Fans' Hearts. They're spreading awareness through their latest campaign here. So, Dr. Steinbaum, thank you for taking some time with us today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
No, we appreciate you joining us. And we know as everyone's getting ready for the big game right now, as a sports fan, you go through a lot when you're watching a game here. And Bayer is kind of helping fans understand that your chance of heart attack actually can double when your home team plays. So can you explain to us how the stress associated with sports fandom, especially during big moments when you're watching your home team play, can actually contribute to an increased cardiovascular risk?
You know, I think we all know what this feels like. I gotta say, I'm the mom of a soccer goalie. The ones I really feel the worst for are like your mother, you know, because we're in it and the fans are in it, which is so awesome and so amazing and part of what makes it so great. But the reality is, you know what this feels like. Your heart rate goes up. You get a little short of breath. Your blood pressure goes up. That's the perfect setup for a heart attack. And unless you really know what your risk factors are, you don't really know if you're at risk for the worst thing that could happen during that fan day.
Yeah, well, I guess, and I'm with you as a father and a mother that watched our kids play sports, and my daughter did play soccer, and she was a goalie. So you're a mom watching your daughter play goalie, and your heart rate's going up. So when you're watching a game, what are some things that you can do to try and mitigate that a bit?
I always think it's funny. The other parents look at me and they're like, the cardiologist having a heart attack here. You know, I'm pacing. But it's so real. And I do know what's happening. So the first thing to do is breathe. You got to just breathe. Get your blood pressure down. Stop hyperventilating. You know, all of these things are really important. Go to the other room for a second. Walk away. You know, you have to realize, I hate to say it, you guys, I hate to say it. It's just a game. and you're not playing it. You're watching it. And you can cheer on, but it's not worth the risk of having a heart attack. But I think what's important to know is you've got to have risk factors in order for this to happen. And things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, family history, smoking, all of these things are risk factors for heart disease. So you've got to know your risks. And that's really what we're talking about with Bayer is this education means everything.
Education, a dose of perspective, and just stopping to take a breath. All of these things, great sound advice from someone who certainly knows it. To learn more about your heart health, make sure you visit checkyourheartrisks.com and take the heart health risk assessment test there. Dr. Steinbaum, we can't thank you enough for this. Everyone should heed that sound advice. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I think the hardest advice to heed there is when she said it's just a game.
Yeah.
That's difficult to do. And
probably doesn't apply to this one.
I would say not. And what she said actually about being the mom and watching her kid, that was always the most stressful thing to me. It was never when I was playing. I mean, there are stressful moments that we can talk about the players, but it was always watching you or Jake or Sydney do your thing because you have no control. You're just kind of watching, you know, and you're just hoping the best for your kid. Or on the field, you have control over what happens. I have control over getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, no, 100%. You can handle that business yourself. We were talking about that before Stugotz was going to join us here off the top of the next hour about watching his daughter race Rachel, who plays lacrosse at Northwestern, and said she scored a couple of these goals, and it was like nothing I'd ever imagined, nothing the Jets ever did for her. I was like, Stugotz, what have the Jets ever done for you that was good?
That's exactly
in
right.
your lifetime that could possibly contain that?
Very true.
It is very true. It's sound advice. And, Dad, it's a reminder there's a lot of pressure that comes with this game. And as we start to look at the idea, it's the most cliche sports question in the world, but who is under the most pressure heading into this game?
To me, listen, Andy Reid has already closed the deal a couple of times. So has Mahomes. So we understand the success that team has had. So I looked at the San Francisco side, and quite honestly, I look at a Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, the guys who put this team together as it's time to get the payoff, right? I mean, they had they've built an incredible team. They've had the one horrific moment of trading away assets to go up to pick Trey Lance, and that was a complete failure. Now, what softened that blow a little bit is you hit money with Brock Purdy.
Yeah, you had a nice
Mr.
backstop.
Irrelevant. But it's time for everybody to keep saying, boy, you're building a team, what a great team you've built. Which, by the way, real quickly, do you know that before Christian McCaffrey got on this team, Kyle Shanahan had a losing record? He had a losing record until Christian McCaffrey came on the scene, was traded to this team.
Yeah, they had been seasons where we'd seen injury really rob this team outside of those couple deep postseason
So we
runs.
keep saying this is the most balanced team and the team with so much talent on it and they haven't gotten the payoff. They went to one Super Bowl and they lost. They lost in the last couple of NFC Championship games. Now they're back. So to me, it's these two guys who built this team have to get the payoff.
I was going to say, part of me looks more at John Lynch because I don't know. I look at Kyle Shanahan and I go, yeah, there's pressure, but only so much. He survived that swing and miss with Trey Lance. He's shown, hey, he can get multiple quarterbacks to a Super Bowl in his tenure, only a couple of years apart. And he's such a renowned play caller. He's always going to have a home in and around this league. For John Lynch, I only say that because the job's going to get a lot harder soon. Because while you guys paid Jimmy Garoppolo, it wasn't the earth-shattering kind of money. Brock Purdy keeps this up, you're probably going to have to pony up a good little bit of cash for Brock. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we know how much that changes team building. And the whole sell for this 49er squad has been, you got all pros 4 deep on every side of the ball for the most part here. That's not the world you get to live in on the other side of paying a quarterback if that happens. And so I do think the team building standpoint for the 49ers almost has the most pressure because that's the one thing we haven't seen from this iteration is what you do when your hands are on the wheel and you've actually got to give a quarterback money who's not giving you a bargain.
Well, yeah, I mean, because fans just look at the team this year while John and the management and the capologists have to be looking 5 years down the road of who we're going to have to pay, what basically the market value is for that, what kind of long-term deal to spread out and make the cap hit actually less than it needs to be. So you're right, that's some work to do because you look at a team like Tampa Bay that got in trouble for that by bringing in Brady and just signing people to get the brass ring, which they did, but then they were in cap hell. All of a sudden, you got $85 million in dead money you're dealing with, and you're kind of revamping, which to me was even more impressive on them even making the playoffs this year the way they did because of the hole you can put yourself in while you're building a team, especially with great players like San Fran, then eventually you have to pay.
Yeah, and I mean, the same could be said for the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, I know injury was a huge factor in that last year for them too, but there was this thought of, you had pushed so much in, and the 49ers, it was less sudden, right? Those teams, there were a couple of marquee trades. There were big acquisitions that sacrificed picks in the future. For the 49ers, it really has been more of, hey, you have built this slow over time. Right. Hey, you have not only acquired and drafted guys that are good, but you brought in a Christian McCaffrey like that. You went out and got a Trent Williams a few years back. And so all of these things coming to a head where you're at this point with your roster where you got to get it over the hump at some point. Because I'm with you. For Andy Reid, no real pressure. Patrick Mahomes, you're getting into some interesting spot legacy-wise where you compared to Tom Brady can certainly start to be something that adds pressure. If that, I'm sure him as a competitor is something that fuels him wanting to go out there and clear that kind of mark. But I really do think the 49ers from that team building standpoint, so however much you lump Kyle Shanahan into that, who's got a big voice, and certainly John Lynch, that's going to go a long way in finding out what happens with this game. Coming up next, though, we want to take a look at some of what's going to go on the field in this game, the matchups that'll decide the outcomes. We'll get to those next here on GoJo and Golic, live from Las Vegas. right, welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. We're presented by 1-800-Flowers.com, DraftKings official flowers for Valentine's. Hoping to talk to Aaron Schatz, analytics expert over at FTN, creator of the Almanac, DVOA, so many of the great stats. He's been on with us a bunch before. He's great at looking at some of the finer tune points that are going to help win and lose this games for certain teams, Dad. You and I were just talking before we got on here about some of the injuries that are going to affect the outcome of this game. I talked to Joe Tooney, the Spanish speaker himself, last night at the Super Bowl. It doesn't sound like he's going to be a guy that's ready to go for them. Is Nick Allegretti, who was a big story in the AFC title game, probably going to get his number called again?
I remember talking to Nick Allegretti last year in Arizona during pregame. That Sunday, the morning before the game, he was FaceTiming with his wife, who was in Chicago, giving birth to their twin girls.
Oh, my God.
That's what he was doing Sunday morning of the Super Bowl. So he had the twin girls, and he was warming up for the game, and we were out there chatting about it. And he was just like, he's like, he actually said to me before the Super Bowl, he goes, you know what? Almost doesn't matter to me what happens in the Super Bowl, right? I got two twin girls at home, so it was very, very cool to talk to him. And now, he gets now possibly, like you said, he started last week or 2 weeks ago, and looks like he's probably going to get the start in this game.
Looks like he could probably be the guy. For more on the matchup that we're looking ahead to this weekend here, Aaron Schatz, kind enough to join us, Chief Analytics Officer over at FTN Fantasy. The Almanac before every season is the Bible that we all look forward towards. Aaron, how's Radio Row treating you so far?
It's been good once I figure out how to get here. They put us in one hotel, and then this hotel is right next to it, next door, theoretically. But you have to wind through 9 gazillion slot machines and 137 restaurants to figure out how to get from one to the next. But at least we don't have to go outside in the very weird Las Vegas rain.
Yeah, it is definitely weird. And like Mike said, they get 4 inches a year. They got it all yesterday. Can we do something? Because there's two terms that are the F word in the NFL. It's game manager and it's analytics.
Yeah, seriously.
So game manager, everybody's trying to, Mike has said game CEO. We've heard other things. And analytics, and I keep trying to tell people, analytics were around when I played in the dark ages. It was called information.
Or quality control.
It's information that you digest and then use how you want, but we've gotten such a hang-up with that word.
I mean, if we just call it strategy, just call it game strategy or roster strategy, because analytics also help teams, figure out their rosters, and a lot of teams use their analytics guys to analyze college kids and try to figure out what to do with like their later round draft picks. And it's just trying to use all the information you have to have a better probability of winning the game. You play to win the game. You want to win the game. You need all the information you can get to win the game. And so I know it's become a little bit of a buzzword and a little bit of a negative thing. And certain coaches like, Brandon Staley got known for analytics, and then he did that thing against Vegas in the last game of the season a couple years ago where he took that timeout at the end. And it made Vegas decide they weren't going to go for the tie.
Right.
That had nothing to do with analytics, nothing at all to do with analytics. But people were like, oh, there you go, analytics guy taking the timeout, right?
It's been so interesting because, Aaron, from your perspective as someone that's obviously made their living around this for a while, how much more common is the use of this kind of analytics and strategy and team decision-making overall in the league? How much has that grown as a trend in-house for so many of these teams?
It's a huge change, and there's really two things driving it. The first is the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl in 2017, right? Every time a team wins the Super Bowl, there's something about them that everybody wants to copy. And from the Eagles, what it was the use of analytics and being more aggressive on fourth downs. Mm-hmm. The other is the next-gen stats, the chips and the pads, and the amount that they can do. It's like a fire hose of information coming at the analytics people who work for teams. Like what we see on the outside is nothing compared to what the teams get as far as data, and you can learn all kinds of interesting things from that. And eventually, you're going to end up having the top college conferences do the chips and the pads too. And then that's going to open up all kinds of ideas for scouting for the draft. Like once you have Big Ten and SEC with the next-gen stats type stuff, you'll be able to see all kinds of interesting, coverage stuff and how offensive linemen work that'll probably improve draft picks.
So what are we looking at this game for analytics or information that stands out to you in this one?
I mean, first of all, the biggest problem with this game is figuring out just who the Kansas City Chiefs are on offense, right? Are we looking at the season, Or are we looking at just the last couple games where their offense has been back to what we think of as the Chiefs' offense? Or do you want to look even longer term, right? Because you think we should look at our priors of what we knew coming into this season, and we all agree. He wasn't the best quarterback in the league this year, but if you wanted a quarterback in the NFL for any game or for any year, you would take Patrick Mahomes right now, no matter whether he had an off year this year or not. So that's the first thing I think that matters. Here's the thing. San Francisco's offense this year was so efficient and so good. They were one of the top 10 offenses by my DVOA stats in the last 43 years.
DVOA, for people unfamiliar, is
defense adjusted, value over average, takes the success on every play, looks at the down and distance, compares it to a league average baseline, adjusted for situation and opponent. The San Francisco offense was better than any of the Kansas City offenses except for 2018.
Wow.
So even if Kansas City's offense is back to normal, which would be like what they were the last couple of years, they're still not as good as what the San Francisco offense has been this year, even with, let's acknowledge, Brock Purdy having occasional limitations when you compare, not when you compare him to his original draft position, but when you compare him to Mahomes, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't think it's a diss on Purdy to say Patrick Mahomes is better. But the offense is better for San Francisco. And the defenses are pretty equal. So Kansas City has a little bit of a special teams advantage. But so that's why the numbers are that's why the odds makers favor San Francisco, because the San Francisco offense has been so good this year.
So what happened then with the San Francisco offense from the season to what we've seen in the postseason now, where for the first time that we've seen with a lot of this core, they've had to dig themselves out of some holes that they've made early in these games and find a way to win late?
I think they just had a bad 3 quarters against Green Bay and a bad 1 quarter. Against Detroit. You know, sometimes you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and it just happened to happen to them for a couple of weeks, right? I think you still learn more from the larger sample, and the larger sample is the whole season, and they were awesome for the whole season. And obviously, look, the Chiefs have a really good defense, but they're going to try to pressure Purdy. They're going to try to blitz Purdy. And yeah, it's true that sometimes when he's under pressure, he gets a little crazy with where he wants to throw the ball, where it's kind of impossible. But for the most part, he was the #1 quarterback in the league against blitzes this year, which is kind of nuts, right? Yeah. But it's true.
So would you say the same thing about the San Francisco defense, that you would take the bigger sample size of the regular season? Because it's one of the biggest disparities we've ever seen in what they gave up on the ground during the regular season and what they've given up on the ground in the postseason.
Yeah, they better hope I'm right about that larger sample size. And I will say Pacheco got better in the second half of the season for Kansas City, but he really hasn't been good in the playoffs. Like, he went back to being not that great in the playoffs, but yeah, the San Francisco run defense hasn't been as good the last few weeks. Like, if you ask me, who's good in this game, rather than telling you one of the teams, I'm just going to answer Pacheco and McCaffrey, because it's so clear that run defense is the weakness for both of these defenses that I think, analytics people, we're proud of being so pass first all the time. Yeah. And this is I'm run the ball. I don't know why Baltimore didn't run.
Yeah.
Run the ball.
Jeez.
McCaffrey, there's going to be a lot of
postseason overall, though. I feel like it's been a real rushing attack renaissance during most of this NFL playoffs.
Except for Baltimore, which was the great running team during the regular season. So what were they thinking? I have no idea.
Ravens fans, look away. Look away from this. All right, Aaron, we got about a minute left here. Let's get your pick for the game here. What have you had circled on here once this came out? The Chiefs getting 2 points, the over-under 47.5 here. What did you like here?
I like the over, even though I do think there's going to be a lot of running because the game is indoors and the offenses are so good. I think I have to go with the sort of statistical chalk, which is picking San Francisco, even against the spread, very narrowly, but to win by 3 or 4 points. It's not like if Mahomes and Andy Reid win another Super Bowl, it's not like we're going to be like, it's a huge upset. It's not a huge upset. It's a tiny upset, but it's still an upset.
I think the upset
49ers are the favorite.
I think the upset would be a blowout in this game.
Yes,
that would be the
exactly.
upset.
On either side, although I will say both of these defenses are way better in the fourth quarter than the rest of the game.
Very true.
So whoever's behind in the fourth quarter is going to have a hard time coming back.
At A-Shots NFL on Twitter. Aaron, thanks so much.
Aaron.
We appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me here.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, live from Las Vegas. It's Super Bowl 58. We're in Sin City. Morale is somehow still high right now. We're presented by DiGiorno. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. And we're excited because it's happy hour, guys, all week long. DraftKings is going to feature a new happy hour boost that's going to be live from 5 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We just hit 5 o'clock Eastern. So you got the first happy hour boost now live on the DK Sportsbook. You can bet the first team to reach 10 points in the game boosted to plus 150. So tune into us every day this week to find out the new happy hour boost. Head on over to the DraftKings Sportsbook. Someone else that loves a good happy hour. Stugotz joining us now.
I love a good boost.
Loves a boost. Loves that. Stugotz, you've been winning this week in Vegas. You don't need a boost, man. You are the boost.
I got to tell you, I love blackjack. I play it because it's mindless. I can add up to 21, okay? And so I just like it. I don't like to think too much. You guys know this. You know me very well. Craps is not for me. Roulette is not for me. Blackjack is my game. But the key is one-on-one with a dealer. You have to find an open table.
Do you really? See, I hate one-on-one.
You're a one-on-one
really?
I'm a one-on-one guy.
I'm not.
I don't want the responsibility of being on the last seat.
I take the anchor seat all the time.
Really?
Why?
Because I love the anchor seat, and and here's why. I trust myself with the moves that I'm going to make, that I play.
Okay.
I don't want to sit there and play the right way because, listen, all I ask of people at the table is do what you do consistently. Like me, I hit 16 if the dealer shows 7 or higher, right? And no matter what, I'll do it consistently.
Right.
It's those that are on. It's those that are on 16 and like, oh, what am I feeling this time? What does my gut say? Just do something consistently. It's all I ask.
So I want people at my table to do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
It's their money. I don't care.
At the end of the day, you're right.
That's why I don't like the responsibility of the last two seats.
Okay.
Because if everyone's got face cards, dealer's got a 4, and I got a 6, if I want to hit, I'm going to hit.
So you don't.
Why should I lose?
You don't get ticked. you don't get ticked off.
There is an Aidan team when it comes to Stugotz.
You don't get ticked off if you're in the beginning and the anchor has a 4 showing and the dealer has a 5 showing and the anchor hits.
Oh, I'll shred them. Are you kidding me?
He says that
and I have a face card?
Yeah. He says that now. Put him in that situation.
Yeah.
Stugotz is going to turn the table
But
quickly.
this is why when I play one-on-one, I eliminate all of this, right? I don't have to worry about the guy to my right. I don't have to worry about anyone.
That's impressive, though.
Yes.
I just never think you can win on a consistent enough basis one-on-one.
You know what? Stugotz is clearly disproving that theory.
Yeah. Good for you.
Stugotz, now you're the one doling out Sage Radio Row Vice in Vegas advice to people. Like Lebitard's coming out here. You guys have the shows over at Circa Thursday and Friday this week. How nervous are you about Lebitard being in the Super Bowl environment?
It makes me really nervous. I got to be honest. He hasn't been here since the Jacksonville Super Bowl. How long ago was that? What game was that? Do you remember that one?
Jacksonville,
the Philly.
Super
That was
Bowl.
Philly, and
it was Philly. Yes,
and I remember it was miserable weather in Jacksonville. I never want to go there again.
It was
for
Super Bowl 39.
Yeah.
It was the Patriots beating the Eagles 24-21.
This is a man when the Super Bowl was in our town thought it was a good idea to go to New Orleans.
Yeah, that's right.
And follow the fan reaction when the Saints won a Super Bowl. So I'm nervous for Dan. I don't think he knows what he's walking into.
Well, the only thing is he's not going to deal with Radio Row here because you guys are going to be.
So he thinks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got him lined up on 19 local stations already.
Oh, man.
Stugotz, what is the secret to winning Radio Row? Because you are someone who, you're home. You were out here a day early before everyone. It was wide open, silent in this room, and you're just here finding I thought you were going to sleep here. What is the secret to being the best at Radio Row?
Well, listen, I learned from the best, from Christopher Mad Dog Russo.
Doggy.
Because he is the mayor of Radio Row. He and I have had this discussion. Now, he will hand that over to me at some point, okay? But I have followed in his footsteps. First off, getting out here, preparation is key, okay? So you guys know this from playing football. You got to be prepared, right? So I like to get out here when no one else is here. It's completely empty. I get a lay of the land. I know where people are sitting before they know where they're sitting. I talk to all the reps. I talk to agents. I talk to everyone. And hopefully it will pay off over the next 3 days.
Huh.
That's what you have to. You got to come out here on Sunday. If you don't put the work in, then your week might go to hell. I mean, that's
pretty impressive.
Stugotz put work in.
What I've learned.
I just happened to get here.
It was the most expensive flight you could justify. Yeah.
What I've
I always search for the most expensive flight.
I've learned,
especially with Dan's pay.
What I've learned from doing shows here, but then also having to go do interviews. If I have some schedule, cool. But if not, keep moving.
Yes.
Say, if you're saying hi to people, whatever, keep moving, because you stop, that's when they come around and say, I get the people, hey, man, Mike, nice to meet you. I listen to Mike and Mike all the time growing up. I love what you guys did. And then there's that moment of silence that I wait for, and it's like, do you have a few minutes? You know, could you come
you know it's coming. Yes.
Yeah.
But so I think day one, that's really funny, Mike, because day one is laying of the groundwork. There's no one here.
Yeah, right.
So, but Tuesday it starts to get a little more crowded. Wednesday and Thursday we know is going to be big. But that's the key. Keep moving. Bobbing and weaving. Finger points, finger guns.
Finger guns?
Nodding of the head. In fact, I gave this advice out on social media, and as I'm walking through here today, a bunch of producers are going out of their way to stand up. But they're not walking with me.
Right.
Finger guns, nodding of the head. And I'm like, that a boy. Keep it moving, though. Let's keep it moving. Because they're about to ask me to come on their local radio station.
100%.
And I'm like, hey, I got you Levitar tomorrow anyway.
Dan's going to be over. It's going to be great. Stugotz, are you excited for this Super Bowl matchup? There's been a lot of people that have said there's a lack of juice around a game that's a rematch from 4 years ago.
How?
And teams that have been here before.
It's Patrick Mahomes, like, chasing history, right? It's two storied franchises. It's the last pick in the draft versus maybe the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. Like, I think the storylines are great. I would have preferred Detroit getting here just because they turned it into America's team. But if you love football, like, there is something about certain teams colliding on a football field, and it just feels right. If the Niners and Chiefs doesn't feel right to people, then what does?
This is like our Golden State Warriors, Cleveland Cavaliers from that one stretch in the NBA where they played every year in the finals.
Exactly right.
It's like seeing Notre Dame. It's like seeing Notre Dame play USC every year. The color, it just makes sense.
They are the right colors.
Yes.
That's true. They are the right colors.
Yeah, it's a classic matchup, though.
But then we also, what we get is, because there's so much time to go over things, I think the biggest line is people jumping on, is Patrick Mahomes already the greatest quarterback ever?
No.
And if he's not, is he the bigger question is he number 2 right now?
I just love this two guys didn't even wait.
No.
Is he, and I agree.
Well, Mahomes agrees.
Mahomes exactly
That's
right.
what he's got to say.
But
that's what he's got to say in that spot.
Is he right now, the question, the second best quarterback to ever play the game?
I mean, do you think he is?
No, I think that's
Montana?
That's a knee-jerk reaction at times, I think.
But I've done so much work with both of you, Mike. You and I have had this discussion. You would tell me that Dan Marino might be the. You don't do the rings thing.
No, I do not do the rings thing.
So wait, if we're not doing the rings thing, then what is this conversation about? I thought that was the whole point, was longevity and rings and all this stuff that Pat couldn't do. You guys are saying the rings don't matter and it's production and talent and all those things. Pat has more of that than any quarterback that we're going to talk about.
Here's what I talk about, though. I do talk about longevity. I do talk about that.
But not rings.
I think I do. I hate putting rings with the quarterback position.
So if he doesn't need rings, then how is it not Pat?
It's not Pat. Pat may be, what he does in the pocket is incredible, but, I mean, let's give it a little more. Can he do this? Dan Marino did it consistently for a long time.
16, 17 years.
Exactly right. Yes. Close to 2 decades. Tom did it for 2 decades. Joe did it for, close to 2 decades. Let's give it a little more time. You do that and stay at the top like that, and then I'm willing to go down that road.
At his best, you get one guy for one game you need to win. Are you picking anyone but Pat?
Oh, God.
I'm picking
Tom. I may take Joe or Dan. I'm not saying I take them right now over Pat, but I'm not sitting here saying, oh, God, it's Pat. Pat's great. And the thing is, Pat, the amount of time he played, that he's already in that discussion says a lot about him. But, my God, what Dan Marino has done, what Montana has done, I mean, it's incredible. So to go one game, what Tom has done, what Peyton Manning has done.
Right.
I mean, to sit there and say one game, I'm taking Pat right now.
What Pat's already done, and he's 28.
I know, but why are you shocked by this? He's very much a team guy. Like, if you think back to those Niners teams and those Dolphin teams, Marino didn't have it. Mike knows this. No running game. No. Montana had Roger Craig.
Yep.
Now, Marino had receivers. He had great receivers, Mark Cooper and Mark Clayton.
And Joe obviously did.
But the defense for the Niners was a lot better than the defense for the Dolphins.
Yes.
The Dolphins' defense wasn't bad, but he had a running game. If you put Marino on the Niners, I think Marino might have like 6 Super Bowls. I'm not joking.
Oh, listen, and I get all that, but I guess that's my point about Pat is, he had Tyreek Hill and Andy Reid coming into the league, but he walked in and immediately he was the one winning these games. It wasn't like Brady where he was along for the ride early on in his tenure. Those were teams led kind of like the Chiefs now, where they've reversed into that. They've backed into those teams. But Pat came out the gate and had to be the dude tossing 50 touchdowns for them to win.
He did. And this year has been different. But and Mike and I have discussed this as well. I will tell you, this year will feel different if they win, because the first 2 years, the 3 Super Bowls they got to, they were expected to get there.
Right.
He was supposed to win, and he won, to his credit. This year, going on, beat the Dolphins, going on the road to beat Lamar, going on the road to beat Josh Allen, and then beating the Niners on a neutral, like that's going to put him at a whole new level.
It is. And like I said, Mike, look what we're doing right now. We're already talking about him with the all-time greats. And I think that's where we can be right now.
Right, 6 years in.
But to sit here and say right now, is he the second greatest of all time because we're doing the rings thing? Or if you had one game to play, is he the guy? And I'm not going down that road yet. I'm just not doing it.
I'm not there yet either.
Man, it's very weird that I'm the one that feels like being this hot
either. I'll tell you that much.
I do think part of this also goes to we always like to defer to the thing that feels like it's ours, and Pat feels like he's mine.
Right.
Like that's the cool part about it is in my lifetime, I grew up in New England. I grew up in Connecticut as a kid. I was there for so much of this. But Pat now as an adult, I've watched the entire life cycle of this so closely that selfishly I want him to be that great.
Of course, and I feel like Brady is mine, right?
Yeah.
So like Brady, but your dad, we have to defer to your dad here. Like he played against Dan Marino. He knows how great he is.
I played against Dan Marino, Steve Young, Joe Montana, John Elway. I mean, we just can't discount what those guys did.
Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, even. Those are Mike. One game. I'm not certain I wouldn't take Aaron.
And then,
like prime Aaron.
And then go to Peyton Manning in Indy, and before he had the Marvin Harrisons of the world, some of the receivers we didn't know who they were. He was making them great, and they didn't have the greatest defenses back then. They were getting their asses run on all the time, but Peyton was elevating them.
Now, if you take Brady, you might have to say, well, okay, I'll take Eli. Think about the 3 quarterbacks Brady lost to.
Unbelievable.
Well, 2. Eli twice.
Eli
Nick
twice.
Foles.
And Nick Foles.
Nick Foles, I would say.
But that's his point, Mike.
Yeah.
That's his point. I think that's your point. It's a team game.
Yeah.
Like your dad is all about it's a team game.
He is all about it.
I know your dad better than you do.
It feels weird, but at this point, you kind of do. I want to get to this with you, Stugotz, while we've got you here. We could do quarterback rankings forever. But I thought this particular headline was tailor-made for you. This was the sound of our good friend Diana Rossini on the Athletic Football Show talking about Mike Vrabel and why he did not wind up with a head coaching job this cycle. Let's listen to this.
Okay.
Do you know I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me Vrabel's physical build, that he's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions, and that is a factor.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So I love this first and foremost because we all know Diana Rossini. We love Diana Rossini here. Shoots from the hip and off the cuff right here.
Yes.
Dad, I have to start with you. You golfed with Mike Vrabel out in Tahoe.
He was the caddy.
Start with the caddy.
Yeah,
okay?
he was the caddy.
Because your dad's not intimidated by anyone, okay? So I'm walking with your dad. I'm walking with Ray Romano. And all I kept asking your dad was, does Vrabel like me? He's very. Diana's right.
Yes.
He's a very intimidating man.
And hits the golf ball so far.
He's going to hit it further next time you see him.
Yeah, he is. But because Andy Reid is large, but he's jolly.
Different, yes.
But
Dan Campbell, hot seat. Right now.
Yeah.
Too big to be a coach.
I do think part of his physical makeup is what makes people so surprised Dan Campbell had success. I do.
Yes,
and
100%.
I think when we had Mike Lombardi on, or we were talking to him, I agree, or was talking to him, I agree with one of the things he said about Vrabel, that in today's NFL, it's more collaborative between management and coach.
Right.
And you got two guys in Bill Belichick who's, got two hands, he's wearing rings. How are you debating him on anything? And you have Vrabel, who the word was that he butted heads sometimes with management. He is a large dude, can be intimidating. I don't know how much that it's a factor, but if he's not as collaborative, and that's the direction we're going at younger GMs, that maybe that is more of a reason of why he isn't a head coach.
It's kind of interesting. It never even dawned on me. But now I'm putting it all together. Like, that man intimidated me on the golf course.
He's the number one.
He didn't do it purposely, by the way. He's just an intimidating-looking guy.
That's the point. Is he has that strong, silent type demeanor. He does get along well with people, but he's also been a guy that's been at least in the top 3 when we do the coach and cage match conversation every July.
No doubt. But by the way, I would tell that GM, like, get over it. He was also winning with Ryan Tannehill.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Honestly, if I were Mike Vrabel and I heard this headline that someone said you're literally too big to coach, you wouldn't be able to tell me a damn thing. I'm too much of a hoss for you to feel comfortable having me. I intimidate you that much. I'd be 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Hey, all I gotta say, if there's a GM or anybody in management who's intimidated by him, you know what I tell them? Get in the gym.
Right.
Yeah. Weight room. I'll stuff you in a locker, nerd.
It's funny because with Mike McDaniel, Dolphins coach, when they started to lose some games, Dolphin fans were like, hey, he doesn't look as cool as he used to look.
He's too small now. Why do I see his ankles so much?
He is kind of tiny.
You know what? It's why Dan Campbell, it's been so fascinating watching everyone try and lump him in with the NFL conversation around analytics and everything there. When it's just like Alex Anzalone, who I love, is phenomenal. The linebacker for them, long blonde hair, looks like a Dan Campbell-esque type player in there. And I saw this quote from an article he did in the Players Tribune when he was asked about Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down. And he says, on 4th down in that situation, we're always going for the kill. That mentality took us from 0-10-1 to the NFC Championship game in just a few seasons. Honestly, if anything, when we decided to kick the field goal in the first half, I was surprised then. Like, he's just built this whole football team full of dudes that are constantly walking around with a balled fist waiting to punch somebody in the face. And we try and make that math.
And while that's cool, I do believe they're making wrong decisions at times. That being said, did you see the is it the GIF, whatever, of Dan Campbell on The Price is Right?
Oh, with the 95.
Oh my God!
I'll just go in.
Again. Drew, I'm going to spin again.
Because everyone stops at 99 cents, right?
Okay, got us.
I mean 95 cents. You're trying to get to $1.
Billy loves that Dan Campbell has become the face of analytics. Like that guy. It's Billy's favorite thing in the world because Billy likes anarchy and he loves chaos. Billy, our producer, on the Le Batard show. But it is funny. I don't think Campbell's applying any sort of math. It's just I'm tougher than you are.
That's exactly right.
I'm the toughest coach in this stadium.
We have somehow made the old school football guy into the most scared, cowardly, hyper-conservative decision maker out there. And Dan Campbell's being penalized for people because he wants to go and win and because he believes in his players. That's insane to me. And I agree with Billy, by the way. Every year at MIT, they do the Sloan Sports and Analytics Conference. And I said, numbers people, if you're smart, you invite Dan Campbell. You make him the keynote speaker. You bring him in, you dress him up, you make him your nerd king, and you embrace this and rebrand the entire thing.
I think you give him naming rights. I think he becomes the Campbell Analytics.
Analytics with Dan Campbell.
Analytics.
And give him an honorary doctorate from MIT.
And they just say, what were the analytics that made you go for this? He say, I got no analytics. I just told our guys go punch him in the mouth. Bite a kneecap.
But sometimes it hurts him. Like he does it too much.
I agree.
He does it too much, man. GoJo loves it. I know you love that he goes.
I do love it.
Yeah, but sometimes you got to go by feel.
Sometimes you do.
He went by feel there.
Yeah, but this is how you lose your team. When you put them in losing positions, when your decisions are the reasons they lose, that's how you kind of lose a team.
But Stugotz, no football player by and large is going to look at those decisions, especially when it's been coached into the team that way so much. Every one of those guys, we talked to Penei Sewell on the show the other day, left tackle or the right tackle for them, and he said, we didn't execute in that spot.
Right.
The play was there. Those were catches, and we've talked about this, that should have been caught by Reynolds, and we should have executed there. That's the mindset they've instilled where 4th down is not a thing to them. It's just another play.
And I love that they think that way and have the mindset because at the end of the day, they do have to execute, but in the third quarter, you kick the field goal and go up 3 scores.
You have to.
That's my thought.
The one
in the fourth quarter,
in the first half.
The one in the fourth quarter, I go less because it would have been a 55-yarder, so maybe I could deal with that. But I still think you know what? If Dan kicked it there, Dan's still really tough.
Yes.
You know what? Nobody's going to say, "Oh, is Dan really that tough?"
GoJo, I think Campbell should have a roster that does not include a kicker next year.
Yes. Go all in. Go all in.
Take it next level.
No kickers, no punters. Dan Campbell against the world.
Stop us at 4 downs. You get the ball back.
Stugotz, by the way, who's your pick in this game?
I'm not going against the Chiefs again. I took the Chiefs 75-14.
You guys commandeered our board.
Has there ever been 75 points scored in a football game by anyone? Does the math make sense?
Wow.
Wait, 9 touchdowns is 63, 7-70. 77-14.
There we go. We'll update the score here. Everybody check out the
I had 10
Levitard show
touchdowns,
over
a safety, and a field goal.
How about that?
Wow. See you, man. See you, Stu. Thanks.
Love you guys. See you.
start off the week in Vegas, then with a couple of Raiders here. Jakobi Meyers, Aidan O'Connell from these Las Vegas Raiders on behalf of Bounty, which you guys are going to be tough guests to top for everyone the rest of this week here. Have you gotten used to just the constant aroma of wings following you from the Bounty House?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I'm in love with it, though. I ain't mad at it at all.
Not one bit. Aidan, for you, I mean, this right up your wheelhouse here?
Yeah, it started pretty early around breakfast time. So,
there we go, breakfast wings.
Which is great, room temperature breakfast wings. But no, the wings are wings, so we're excited to eat some.
Absolutely. And for you guys in Bounty, I mean, great partnership here. What do you guys had going on with them this week?
Man, Bounty is definitely important to football. If wings are important to football, then Bounty got to go there step by step. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, I think just, getting messy with the sauce, eating a lot of different wings, which all of America will be doing this week, and we're joining in.
Exactly. Heavy wing consumption this week, and it's in your backyard. I mean, for you guys, first and foremost, being out here in Vegas, Jakobi, you've got more of a purview of this coming from outside and being in New England, but for both of you guys, coming in and actually having football in Las Vegas, something that no one thought was possible for so long, what's the experience been like?
Man, it's been great, honestly. I love the city. I love the organization. I love my teammate. I just love everything about it, honestly. It's been real cool.
What was your thought when you got drafted and you're like, all right, I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm going to be part of this historic franchise. What you expected versus what you got when you were here?
Yeah, I think I grew up in the Midwest and went to school in the Midwest, so to come to Las Vegas is a culture shock for me, a lot different than where I grew up. And so, it was awesome to know the pride behind the organization. I think, obviously, it being in Oakland and in L.A. before, and for it to be here, I think the fans, I'm sure Cope can attest to this, there's a lot of loyal fans that have been loyal fans for a long time.
And to have this event also now crash landing in this place where you guys are used to going to work around here. You know, you go and you have your normal cadence here. I know it's early in the week, but what's it been like seeing the Super Bowl all of a sudden crash land in here?
Man, I know traffic getting a little heavy, heavier and heavier every day, you know what I mean? But it's cool, though. It's going to be a great experience. I feel like we started off the week with a great opportunity to be here, so it's been real cool.
So for you guys, you had a really interesting season this year. Obviously, a coaching change happening in the mid-year. No, certainly no one wants to see that when you come in and you start your season. But, Jakobi, I want to start with you.
I'm going to eat a wing while Jakobi.
Yeah, I was going to say, please, feel free to dig in, fellas. I don't want anyone to feel like they got to. Make sure we get the paper towels out here. You're a ranch or blue cheese guy, both of you?
I'm ranch.
Okay, there we go. Right.
Sure. I'm neither, actually. Yeah, that's
really?
Yeah, I'm neither.
Oh,
yeah,
wow. All right. Well, welcome to the right side of history, Jakobi.
You,
I appreciate that. A ranch man of class over here. So while you guys munch on the wings here, you can take a bite here. Jakobi, I'll start with you, though. Antonio Pierce takes over. Guy, former player, obviously been around there on the staff there. What was that initial message from him when he took over the helm as the head coach this year?
I think he really wanted the guys to show up and be who they were every day, you know what I mean? Like, no days off, everybody be you. But then at the same time, go out there and play the right football that we knew we could play. Like, we had a bunch of talented players, but it just wasn't showing up on the field and on the film. So he just really wanted to pull it out of us.
How ready for those victory cigars were you? Like, what was the planning like going into that? Because that